We take you live now to Bloor and Dundas, where NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is discussing his decision to back out of the deal to prop up the Liberal government until the election. Let's listen in.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Friends, Canada is a place where we take care of our neighbors, where we teach our kids the values of compassion and kindness. This used to be a country where working hard earned you a good life, where a paycheck from a decent job got you a home that fit your family and a fridge full of groceries. Generations of Canadians fought to build a healthcare system for everyone, where the size of your wallet should never determine the quality of care you get or who gets care the fastest. For millions of Canadians, the Canadian dream is fading. They're working harder than ever and falling farther behind. So many have lost hope. Hope that they'll ever be able to buy a home, that healthcare will be there for them in time, or that they'll ever be able to retire. But they see the billionaire class is better off than ever. Grocery giants, land developers, and corporate landlords are raking in record profits, big CEO bonuses, and still getting government handouts. Greed is not a Canadian value. Justin Trudeau has proven again and again that he will never stand up to the elites, that he will always cave to corporate greed. And Canadians pay for it every time we pay our bills, buy our groceries, or pay the rent. Justin Trudeau has let Canadians down. And Canadians are done with his endless disappointment and delay. Trudeau's Liberals can't deliver change. They are too weak and too selfish to stop Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. And let me be clear, Conservative cuts would take things from bad to worse. Pierre Poilievre will take from workers, from retirees, from young people, from patients, from families, in order to give more to big corporations and wealthy CEOs. He will pour fuel on the fire of corporate greed. It will be a free-for-all for the rich and powerful, with no one standing between the greedy giants and the rest of us. He will cut and gut Medicare as we know it. Not only will he cancel dental care, which is now giving millions of families and seniors the opportunity to get the dental care they need, he will end pharmacare and tear down healthcare brick by brick until the only way you will get the care you need is if you can afford to pay for it. As we have just seen, he would rather fight with nurses than hire more of them. Everything Pierre Poilievre does is designed to take from you and give to the ultra-wealthy. He will sacrifice our kids' future so that big oil companies can make even more money, so that rich CEOs can make higher profits off the backs of working people. There is a battle ahead of us, the fight for the Canada of our dreams, the fight against Pierre Poilievre and his callous agenda of conservative cuts, the fight to restore hope, and the promise that working hard gets you a good life. I'm ready for that fight. Yesterday, I notified the Prime Minister that I have ripped up the supply and confidence agreement. And when the next election comes, my friends, I am running to be the next Prime Minister of this country. Thank you. Thank you. Because, friends, in the next federal election, Canadians will get to choose between Poilievre's conservative cuts or the hopeful future that New Democrats can bring. The future Poilievre wants is mean and small, but Canadians are not. I've heard from you, I've heard from so many of you, that life has become too exhausting and too expensive. It doesn't have to be this way. I want to tell you that it's okay to have hope. Hope that Canada's middle class will once again thrive together. Hope that this generation and the next will be able to afford a home of their own. Hope that we can stop grocery greed from ripping you off and bring down prices. Hope that healthcare will be there when you and your family need it. Like many of you, all my life I've been told it can't be done. Cynics will say Canada has never had an NDP government, it's not going to happen. They will attack us for taking on the powerful, for getting in the way of big corporations ripping you off. The attacks have already started by self-serving politicians like Pierre Poilievre, who won't do anything for someone else unless he benefits. But Canadians aren't selfish or cynical. We believe in lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. We're a nation of people who take care of our neighbors. We're a nation of builders. We're a nation of believers. We will not let them tell us it can't be done. Because if we are together, nothing is impossible. Woo! Big corporations and wealthy CEOs have had their government. It's the people's time now. Le Canada est un pays où nous prenons soin les uns des autres, où nous enseignons à nos enfants les valeurs de la compassion et de la générosité. Autrefois, le Canada était un pays où travailler fort permettait de mener une vie agréable,
allowed one to have a nice life,
d'un emploi décent,
but
permettait d'avoir un logement
with a wage
adapté,
that allowed us to have apartments or a place to live and a full fridge,
de votre portefeuille,
where the size of your wallet
la vitesse ou
did not determine the speed or quality of healthcare that you receive.
pour des millions de personnes.
For millions of
Le rêve
people,
canadien est dur
the Canadian
à
dream
imaginer.
is hard to imagine.
Travaillent plus et
They're
travaillent
working
plus
more
que jamais.
and harder than ever,
N'arrivent pas à joindre les deux bouts.
but can't make ends meet.
Beaucoup ont perdu l'espoir.
Many have lost hope.
L'espoir de pouvoir un jour
The hope of
s'acheter une
one
maison,
day buying a home,
que les soins de santé seront
that healthcare
disponibles
will be available
aux besoins,
when needed,
qu'ils pourront un jour prendre
or
leur retraite
that one
dans la
day
dignité.
they can retire with dignity.
En même temps, ils
But at the same time, they see that the ultra rich are doing better than ever.
de
The giants
l'alimentation, les
in the food industry,
immobiliers,
real estate promoters, and CEOs of big business are making record
malgré
profits,
ça,
And despite this, they continue to be supported by the state. Cupidity is not a Canadian value. Justin Trudeau has proven many times that he can't stand up to the CEOs. And the people pay the price each time. They pay a bill or their rent. Justin Trudeau abandoned Canadians. People have had enough of his deceptions and broken promises. Justin Trudeau's Liberals cannot bring change and hope that people need. They're too weak and selfish to stop Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. Let's be clear. Conservative cuts will make things worse. Pierre Poilievre will attack workers, young people, and families. He will cut services in order to give more to big business and rich CEOs. He'll pour oil onto the fire. It'll be a great time for the ultra-rich and CEOs, and you're the ones who will pay the price. He said it. He will end the dental care program, and he'll end free contraceptives and diabetes medication. He will take apart the health care system brick by brick. He'll cut funding to health, and you'll need to pay to see a doctor. He prefers insulting nurses rather than hiring some. He wants to sacrifice the future of our children so that the big oil industry can make more money. And he will allow the CEOs to get rich on the back of workers and their families. Poilievre wants division rather than unity, for us to unite and help one another. We have a battle ahead of us. The battle for the Canada of our dreams. The battle against Pierre Poilievre and his program of conservative cuts. A battle to bring back hope and the promise that hard work will give you a good life. I'm ready to fight. Yesterday, I told the PM that I had torn up the Liberal agreement we had. And at the next election, I will present to be your next Prime Minister.
Merci. Merci. Les gens auront le choix.
People will have a choice between conservative cuts from Mr. Poilievre or the hope of a better life. The future Poilievre wants is small and mean. But Canadians are not like that. Life has become too exhausting and too expensive for too many families. But we can bring back hope. We can bring back hope. Hope that the middle class might once again blossom and grow. The hope that this generation and the next can afford a home. The hope that we can stop the price gouging in grocery stores. Hope that healthcare services are available when you and your family need it. Like many of you, I was told my whole life that it was impossible. Cynics will say Canada never had an NDP government. It can't be. And they'll attack us because we attack the ultra-rich, because we oppose these big business scams to you. It's already started with selfish politicians like Pierre Poilievre who don't understand why someone would want to help other people, who will do nothing for someone else unless there's profit to them or benefit. The people here are not selfish and they're not cynical. We are a people of hardworking people who believe in its ability, a people that wants to go further. Together, nothing is impossible. Big business and rich CEOs have had the government serve them, and now it's your turn. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And with that, I'll pass the mic to Nina, who will handle the questions.
We're going to start with questions in the room. So let's start with Barbara. Can you please do name and outlet, and then one question will follow up.
Hi there. Good morning. Barbara with Politics. What specifically led to the decision to cancel the agreement with the Liberals? Were there any recent developments or turning points that triggered this decision?
Thank you for the question. We've got a lot done. And we've got some important things that we completed. But it became very clear to me that Justin Trudeau is too beholden to corporate interests to go further, unwilling to stop big corporations that are ripping off Canadians. And so I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement with Justin Trudeau. And we know that that makes the election timing more uncertain and frankly more likely. And we know that the next election is going to be about a choice, a very important choice for Canadians, between Pierre Poilievre, who wants to destroy our healthcare system, tear it down, or New Democrats who want to fix our healthcare system, build it up for people. That's an important choice, and that's the choice we're bringing to Canadians.
Would you mind saying this in French as well?
Oui, bien sûr. Donc, on a accompli des grandes choses.
So we've accomplished great things. We're proud of that. But it was truly clear that Justin Trudeau did not have the courage to face the big businesses that exploit people, and people deserve more. So we decided to rip up our agreement because we need more action to stop these big businesses that gouge people. And so that means that the timing for an election is uncertain. And we're ready, because the next election will be a choice between Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives, who want to cut our healthcare system and effectively destroy or demolish it, or NDP, who wants to work together with the provinces to fix our healthcare system and strengthen support for people. That's the choice of the next election.
And how would you respond to accusations that canceling this agreement creates political instability at a time when Canadians need it least?
Well, we were very clear that we were able to get some important things done. Dental care, pharmacare. But it's also clear that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were unwilling to stop big corporations from ripping off Canadians. And we saw the effect of that, paying more than ever for groceries. And it became very clear that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were unwilling to do what's necessary to stop these big corporations from ripping you off. And so we decided to rip up the agreement. And now it really sets up the question for the next election. The next election is going to be about a choice between Pierre Poilievre, who wants to let his corporate buddies rip you off even more, jack up your rents, and make you pay even more when you go to buy your groceries, or New Democrats, who want to save you money, save you when it comes to buying your groceries and your rent. That's a choice in the next election.
Catherine Brulotte, Radio-Canada. D'abord, avez-vous confiance en ce moment envers le
Do you
gouvernement?
have faith in the Trudeau government at this time? We tore up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and we know that this means that now an election is more likely than in passed. And we did this because it was really clear to us that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals did not have the courage. They were too weak to stand up to big businesses who scam or rip people off. And we know in the next election, people will have a choice between Pierre Poilievre, who wants to let these big businesses exploit us more, which means more increases in grocery prices and rent, or the NDP, who want to reduce your grocery and rent cost and save money for people.
We tore up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and we know that that means that an election now is more likely than before. And we've accomplished a lot together. It was important work, but it became very clear to me that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were far too weak to stop big corporations from ripping off people, and people deserve more. And we know now that that sets up a question for the election, a choice between Pierre Poilievre, who has made it clear that he will allow his corporate buddies to rip off Canadians even more. That means higher prices at the grocery till, and it means higher rents for corporate landlords. Or us, New Democrats, who want to stop these corporations from ripping you off and save you money when you buy your groceries or pay your rent. That's a choice in the next election.
Comment allez-vous voter si un parti présente une motion qui dit simplement que le gouvernement n'a
If one party puts through a confidence vote in the House of Commons? Well, because we tore up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, it's clear this creates a situation where an election is more likely than before. We will look at each vote and decide what is in the interest of Canadians and Quebecers. So we will evaluate or assess each decision by that lens. What is in the interest of Canadians? And what's clear for the next election, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are too weak to stand up and to the Poilievre conservative cuts. We, the NDP, are ready for this combat, this fight, to present an option of hope. We'll bring back hope for people. We want to strengthen our healthcare system. We want to stop these big businesses from ripping people off.
Victoria Stunt with CBC National News. What is your assessment of how the supply and confidence agreement worked for the NDP, and do you think you'll actually be able to leverage more from the Liberals without this deal? If you could answer in English and French.
Sure. When I think about the supply and confidence agreement, I think about two people and what it means to those two folks. And that to me is something I keep in my heart. I think about Brianna, a mom of 5 kids, who was able to get each of her kids a visit to the dentist for the first time in their life. And I met her kids at a park in Edmonton, and I can tell you her kids were happier and healthier because of that visit. And I think about Susan, who insists I call her Sue. And I remember meeting her in Ottawa, and she was sitting in the dentist chair when she told the dentist and the denturist that she is a cancer survivor. She beat cancer, but in the aftermath of that, lost her teeth, and that she wanted her smile back. And I remember her tears of joy when the dentist, the denturist said, "We're gonna get you your smile back." That's who I think about. I think about Sue and I think about Brianna and millions of people like them that have gotten support because we fought for them. But I also know that Sue and Brianna need a lot more, and that this Liberal government is not willing to do that Justin Trudeau is simply not willing to stop big corporations from ripping them off. And that's why we made this decision. It is clear that the Liberals and Justin Trudeau do not have the courage, they're too beholden to corporate interests to stop them from being ripped off, to stop people from being ripped off. And we know that this sets up potential for a more likelihood of an election. And that election is going to come down to a choice. Pierre Poilievre, who's going to let his buddies rip you off even more. He's going to let big corporate grocery stores rip you off even more, and that means higher prices when you buy your groceries. Or New Democrats who are going to save you money when you buy your groceries. That's a choice in the next election. You wanted that again in French? Oui.
Yes.
Donc,
So when I think about what we've accomplished, I think of two people. I think of Brianna, mother of 5, and I met them in Edmonton. And because of what we've done, her children had their first visit to the dentist ever in their lives. And I met her children, and I saw that her children were happier and healthier because of these visits. I also think of Susan. She wants me to call her Sue, so I'll call her Sue. Sue is an elderly person with a set income, fixed income, and survived cancer, but that cost her all her teeth. And I was with her, and when she was at the dentist office, and she said, "I want to get my smile back." And I remember the moment where the denturist said, "We'll give you your smile back." And she cried when she heard that, of joy that she's regaining her dignity. And I think of these two people when I think of what we've accomplished, but I know that both Brianna and Sue need more. They deserve more of this because the cost of living is too high. And I know that Justin Trudeau doesn't have what it takes to stop the corporations from ripping off Sue and Brianna and other people. So that's why we decided to rip up this agreement. And now I present myself for the next election, the candidate to become the next Prime Minister, because I know that we, the NDP, have the courage to stand up to these corporations that are ripping you off. We'll stop this and we'll reduce the cost of living.
Is it time for an election, and can your party afford one right now?
Well, as I've said, I've ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, and I know that means that an election is now more likely as a result. We are ready to fight an election whenever it happens, and we'll take the choice to Canadians. The choice is between Pierre Poilievre, who wants to tear down the things that you count on, or New Democrats who want to build it up and give you hope. That is a choice in the next election. The cuts of Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre, or the hope of New Democrats to make your life better.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Al Sweeney from CHCH in Hamilton. So there's a lot of focus now on an election to come, but right now we're living through a crime wave, shootings in the street in broad daylight. I wanted to ask you about one particular riding, Hamilton Centre, which is represented by the NDP, and businesses and people say they're afraid to go outside because of the crime, because of the shootings that's going on. What is the NDP doing right now to address this problem?
Thank you for the question. First, I want to say that this is a serious problem across the country. There are many communities where people are feeling really afraid. And you mentioned Hamilton Centre. I can think of lots of communities across the country where people feel like they're not safe. And this is a serious concern because people have the right to be safe in their communities, should be able to take public transit, should be able to operate a business in their communities and feel safe. We know that fixing this problem to create safer communities is a complex one, but it's one that we can absolutely tackle. There's a number of areas where we've got to get serious about solutions. One we know is that when it comes to gun violence, there's a serious concern about guns getting across the border. When Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives had the ability to make decisions, they cut investments in border security, made it harder for our men and women that serve on the borders to protect our borders. They made it harder by reducing funding, by reducing staffing levels. We need to make sure that we are stopping guns from getting into our communities. That's one absolute step we need to take. We need to make sure that we're doing everything possible to keep communities safe. We also need to look at some of the roots of violence and address those with whatever the best evidence is to keep communities safe. We need to use experts' advice to ensure that communities and people are able to move freely, operate their businesses safely in wherever they live.
So could I ask you to answer in English, please, the question that you answered in French? Basically, if Pierre Poilievre moves a non-confidence motion, will you support it?
In terms of any motion moving forward, we're going to look at that motion before we decide. We're not going to presuppose an outcome of that. But I have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. And I know that means that an election has now become more likely. We are ready to fight an election whenever that happens. And when that election comes, the choice is going to be between Pierre Poilievre and Conservative cuts who want to literally destroy our healthcare system. Want to make it so that the only way you can get care is if you can afford to pay for it out of pocket. Or New Democrats who want to fix our healthcare system, build it up so it is there for you and your loved ones when you need it. That is a choice in the next election.
Stephanie Hughes, Bloomberg. What do you need to see from the fall economic statement or spring budget in order to support the Liberals on votes?
For any question around votes, we're going to make that determination on a vote-by-vote basis. So we're going to see what the government presents, and as an opposition party, we'll look at it, and then we'll make our decision. But because I ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, I know this now means that an election timing has become more uncertain, more likely. And we know that that means people will have a choice to make. And I'm looking forward to bringing that choice to Canadians, a choice between Pierre Poilievre and Conservatives who want to let their corporate buddies rip you off even more, want to let corporate landlords jack up rents and renovate you even more. Free season for corporate greed, or New Democrats who want to make sure you can afford to find a place to call home. That's going to be the choice in the next election, and I'm ready to bring that choice to Canadians.
And how worried are you about losing rural and blue-collar votes or ridings to Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives in the next election?
I'm confident that we can remind Canadians what they already know about Conservatives. If you ask people in provinces across this country where they've seen just recently Conservatives, like in Manitoba, they saw what Conservatives do. They cut and gut the things that people care about. People remember in Manitoba, Premier Stephenson and Palliser, who destroyed the healthcare system. They see right here in Ontario, Doug Ford cutting and gutting our healthcare, education, giving to his buddies, making them richer and hurting people in the process. They see that happening. And so I'll remind people what they already know. Pierre Poilievre will do exactly the same. He will allow his corporate buddies to rip you off at the grocery stores, rip you off when it comes to your rent, or the choice between New Democrats. They're going to say, we're going to fight back against that corporate greed and make sure we lower the price of your groceries and lower the price of your rent. That's the choice in the next election.
I'm Mr. Singh, Adrian Gobriel, CTV National News. A couple questions for my colleagues in Ottawa. If the NDP do not do well in the by-elections, especially in Elmwood, Trascona, a riding New Democrats have held for the better part of 4 decades, should it prompt a review of your leadership? Your party in 3 years has made little to no gains as the Liberals' fortunes have plummeted. How much of that is on you?
I will be leading the party into the next election. And in that by-election, people will have a choice. In Elmwood and Trascona, people will have a very important choice. And in Manitoba, Manitobans have made that choice very recently. They rejected Conservatives. They rejected the mean politics of Conservatives and, frankly, the cuts of Conservatives in that province. And now that's a choice they have again, to reject the Conservatives' approach of cutting and gutting the programs that people hold dear, like their health care and their pensions, and a choice between Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative cuts or New Democrats who want to give people back hope, who want to strengthen pensions and fix our health care. That's the choice that people will have to make in this upcoming by-election. And we're going to take that choice to Canadians when the next general election happens as well.
Your dislike for the Tories is clear. You made it clear in your video that you released yesterday. Why do you believe that so many Canadians support them over your party?
I think Canadians right now are incredibly frustrated and let down by Justin Trudeau. And so naturally in Canada's history, when folks are upset with the red team, they then start looking at the blue team. But it's easy to remind folks what Conservatives do. It's easy to remind folks what Conservatives prioritize. What they do is they cut, for sure. They cut health care, they cut pensions, and they give to their corporate buddies. They give them tax giveaways. They make their buddies even richer, and that hurts people. They have a choice in this next election. The cuts of Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre or New Democrats who want to restore hope, who want to strengthen your pension, who want to make sure big corporations aren't ripping you off and we can lower the price of your groceries and your rent. That's a choice that people are going to make in the next election.
Kyle Benning, Global News. Mr. Singh, how big of a factor was the way the Trudeau government handled the recent labor dispute with rail workers a factor in ripping up this agreement?
All right, we are just listening to NDP leader Jagmeet Singh speak
Justin Trudeau and the Liberals caving to corporate greed. In that case, the workers weren't even able to go on strike. They were locked out in an example of bad faith. And what Justin Trudeau did was reward the bad faith of greedy corporations instead of standing up for working people. So it added to the overall examples that we had seen of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals simply being too weak, too selfish, and frankly, too beholden to corporate interests to stop big corporations from ripping off everyday Canadians. And so it added to that, the already mounting evidence. And it also added to the mounting case that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are too weak to stop the serious threat of conservative cuts under Pierre Poilievre. And that's why we're saying this choice that people have in the next election is a very important one. It's really about the future of our country. What type of country do we want to build? One where conservatives under Poilievre cut the things that you need and let their corporate buddies rip you off, or where New Democrats give people hope that we can fix our health care, we can strengthen your pensions, and we can stop big corporations ripping you off to lower your rent and lower your groceries.
You spoke there about the Liberals being weak. Also, you spoke earlier about holding grocery execs to account. You also said that you're not sure when you would trigger election if that would happen. So how can you get Canadians to vote for you if you're seeing leniencies when it comes to not triggering the election, keeping a weak government in power, and also giving the Liberals a little bit of leniency when it came to implementing pharmacare?
We have ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. The agreement is done. We've ripped it up. And we know that makes an election more likely. We're going to make a decision based on whatever votes come in front of us about how we vote on those votes. But let us be very clear. The next election is about a choice, and we are ready to take that choice to Canadians. The choice is between Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. We've seen what they're all about. They want to let their corporate buddies rip you off even more, give them free season.
Well, we've been listening to NDP leader Jagmeet Singh here in Toronto discussing his decision to back out of the supply and confidence deal with the Liberal government, taking several questions from reporters, taking straight aim at Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, saying a Poilievre government would essentially result in cuts in several sectors, but also when asked about whether he would support a vote of non-confidence when the House resumes in about a week and a half, he did not quite clearly give an answer, but we do have Jagmeet Singh coming in to our studio a little bit later this afternoon around 1 o'clock, and we'll hopefully see if he's willing to answer and whether or not he's willing to support a vote of non-confidence.